How you going, people? Well, I'm going to put this in the playlist of the Fort Worth shooting. So this is the arrest warrant that they wrote up for Aaron Dean. That's the officer that shot the woman in her home, went in their backyard. White male, date of birth, 10/27, looks like 84. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this warrant a little bit and it kind of explain what's going on and what they're charging and try to clear up a few things. So this is basically the warrant of arrest. This is like the final document that just says probable cause exists to issue the warrant on this person, suspect being magistrate Tarrant County. Tarrant County is the county of Fort Worth. Murder. He, the suspect, is accused, written under the affidavit, under oath by a detective, so whatever. And then the detective signs it and the judge signs it. So this is basically the warrant to arrest for murder. So when somebody says I have an arrest warrant, this is what they're talking about. Now, these other two documents is the arrest warrant affidavit. This is like the probable cause. This is should be the meat and potatoes. This is the shortest murder affidavit I've ever seen. But anyway, this whole thing is just a rush to judgment. I mean, they're going to be filing for a change of venue. It's crazy that they fired the dude, or they were going to fire him and put a arrest warrant out in 2 days before they had all the facts without even a statement from the shooter. And that's why some people will say, when you don't give a statement, they're going to arrest you. But you still shouldn't give a statement. That's where, if had he gave a statement, they may have not arrested him. Then they would have had to run a statement by the DA, and the DA would have got his other DAs, and they'd have been like, all right, who's prosecuting this? Does this statement help us or hurt us? What else do we need? And they'd have went through all that with a statement. But with no statement, now they just had to show the video and the facts. And, they didn't even really talk to the other officer. I mean, I would think that would be part of the probable cause. They would say what she said. But let me get to the warrant. In any warrant, in most cases, they use these. This is a warrant in 2019. It's a felony, and it's the 2,912 warrant that was issued. So if somebody goes and gets an arrest warrant tomorrow, the number is going to be 219 FW002913. So that's how the case numbers are usually done. Arrest warrant affidavit before me. This is basically standard language, usually right out of the penal code, that you basically fill in. The part that's highlighted dark, that's pretty much what you change. You change the crime and you change that. So, the undersigned authority this day personally appeared before me, the being duly sworn on oath, deposes and says my name, detective, with the Fort Worth Police Department. I have good reason to believe, and do believe. So remember I talk about, for a search warrant, you only need a fair probability you're going to find evidence. So, the language would kind of be, I have reason to believe and do believe that I will find evidence in a place that I'm going to search and the things to be searched and blah, 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 blah. But same kind of language. Almost all states are the same. Aaron Dean, white male, date of birth, did, then and there, I don't know what the hell this then and there is. Somebody's just cut and pasted. Dean did, then and there, commit the offense of murder. And that he, then and there, man, I used to hate these long worded. People just repeat things. When I did my warrant, if it didn't make sense or I didn't think it needed to be there, it came out. I wanted my warrant to be filled with facts, not minutia of then and there. But I digress. Let me get back to this warrant. Did commit the offense of murder, he then and there, intentionally or knowingly. I'm not sure how he intentionally and knowingly, and I'll get into that because a lot of people are saying he intentionally pulled his gun and he intentionally pulled the trigger. Therefore, it's murder. Well, not really. But let's see. Caused the death of an individual. He did cause the death of Atlanta Jefferson by shooting Jefferson. Okay. So this is where the officer puts down his probable cause. This is kind of like the meat and potato. My belief is based on the following. I, Detective Ramashi, Fort Worth police officer for 13 years, currently assigned to major crimes case unit, was assigned to investigate the officer-involved shooting that occurred at the address of so-and-so. I made the scene. I made the scene to begin the investigation. Well, I would have put I arrived at the scene, but okay, I made the scene. The second part here. On 10/12/19 at 2:23 hours. I usually put at about, just so some defense attorney go, did you check your clock? Was it exactly 2:23 or was it 2:22? Is there anything else that you guessed at? Because how do you know it was exactly? So I always put about instead of at, but that just comes from experience and having district or defense attorneys. Fort Worth Police Association, our officer, Aaron Dean, that's the suspect, and C.A. Darch. So C.A. Darch was the other officer that was there. I would think her statement would be critical. I would think one of these things would say, when I interviewed Darch, she said we shouldn't have entered, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that goes in here is basically I think she saw his face. Let's see. Darch were dispatched, so they were both dispatched to an open structure call. Actually, I thought it was a welfare check. So right then and there, as an attorney, I'm questioning, why are you calling it an open structure? Does Fort Worth Police not have standardized? Because is an open structure different than a welfare check? An open structure may mean nobody lives there. It could be a structure versus a dwelling or a home or a residence. So if, as a defense attorney, I'd be attacking this little comment right here. Why did you say open structure? Why was it a welfare check? Why was the caller on the 911 call said he wanted the welfare check done because he knows his neighbor don't leave the door open? But that's just whatever. Let's get back to the facts here. The details of the call said the front doors to the residence were open. Both of the neighbors' vehicles are in the driveway, and the neighbors are usually home but never have their door open. Okay, so I listened to the 911 call. I'm not sure if that's what he said. It's kind of what he said, but it's not really what he said. Which, is that critical? Probably not. He can just play the 911 call, and if it's close, you know, they're going to say, well, they're not going to throw out a warrant because he got a little bit wrong here. But if you get a little bit wrong here to open structure, and then he gets a little bit wrong here on what the neighbor said, then he gets a little bit wrong here, then we start going into how incompetent Fort Worth is because they're hiring incompetent officers, which is why the guy shot the person, because he didn't have training, and this guy with 13 years on still ain't got training to write a decent warrant. But I digress. Number 3, the officers went to the residence wearing Fort Worth police uniforms. That's important. They weren't undercover. They weren't wearing vests. They were wearing full uniforms. Officer Dean had his body camera on, and it was activated. I reviewed Officer Dean's body cam video. The front and side interior doors, well, I would have put, from what I seen from the video, or upon reviewing the video, it appeared the front and side doors were open. But again, I'm always using kind of appears and about because I don't want a defense attorney locking me down trying to, you know, play the stupid lawyer game. Okay, so the doors were open. The glass storm doors were closed. And I remember seeing the two, they call them storm doors. I don't know what you call if you buy them, but that's a common term in Texas. It's basically a door you can see through as a screen door. Sometimes the window's open, sometimes it's not. It's basically so you can just leave your door open and look outside, but it keeps the wind and bugs out. So officers looked through each of the storm doors into the residence without seeing anyone at the front door. The officers, both of them, but only one's getting charged with murder, the officers did not announce their presence. Somebody asked, why wasn't the other officer charged? Well, I mean, it's very easy. She probably should be charged. If she says, I knew we shouldn't have went in the door, and I knew he shouldn't have drew his gun, and I knew we shouldn't be back there, and we should have announced ourselves. If she says all that, then why didn't she stop him? Why did she cooperate, assist, aid and abet in him committing things against policy and against the law by entering that back room? Why isn't she charged? Well, Rick, the state's probably needs a good witness, so if they don't charge her, she's more likely to say what they need to get the result they want. Yeah, that's the way it works. Okay, so, they did not see anyone. Now remember, he says his statement 3 different times in this warrant. The officers did not announce their presence. That's a problem. Officer Dean, using his flashlight, checked the vehicles in the driveway and then proceeded to the backyard. Why? Well, that's for another question. If I was a judge, I'd be like, why'd he go in the backyard? Doesn't necessarily need to be in the warrant, because this guy's just kind of stating facts that happened on how he ended up there and why he shot the person. So, then proceeded to the backyard. Officer Dean used his trusty flashlight off his bat belt to blind the subject with 1,200-watt power without announcing himself and scared the crap out of, well, let me get back to what he just said. Used his flashlight, opened the gate. See, I would have said either open the locked gate or open the latch gate, which was latched, or he undid the latch and opened the gate. This open the gate is very vague. Now, looking at the video, you can tell he moves the latch and opens it. That's going to matter. If the gate was swinging open and he just pushed on it, yeah, he'd be in a better position. I still don't think he's got any business going back there, and entered the backyard. Why? We don't know. Maybe you could have asked the other officer, C.A. Darch, why they entered. Maybe that would be a good question. Rick, you're just picking on them because you don't like Fort Worth PD. I'm just picking on them because it seems like I got a lot of questions on an arrest warrant. Flashlight open and entered the back door. Officer Dean still had not announced his presence. That's twice he said it. Said it in 3 and he said it in 4. Officer Dean then shined his light into the back window of a dark room and observed someone inside. Man, I don't know how he observed someone inside. It's pretty much he yelled and shot. Officer Dean then gave orders to put his hands up, show me your hands, without identifying himself. That's the 3rd time. That's going to be a key issue. And fired his handgun 1 time through the window. The body camera video does not clearly see through the window due to the reflection of Officer Dean's flashlight. So there's going to be no camera footage on whether or not she had a gun pointed. They know she pointed a gun because they interviewed the kid. But we'll get to that. Anita Jefferson, who lived at the place, was shot, yelled out in pain, fell to the floor. Tragic, tragic. Absolutely shouldn't have happened. Homeowner with a gun defending herself and her nephew. Freaking crooked-ass government making unlawful entry into her backyard, shining a light, never announcing. Absolutely wrong. People are like saying I'm taking a cop's side on this, and I don't get it. I'm taking that just because we sacrifice a young officer does not fix or identify the problem. The problem is quota hiring, lowering the standards, hiring people for other things other than qualifications. You lower the standard, you put people out there that shouldn't be out there. Then when they kill people, you're like, oh, we'll just send them down the road. But we'll continue to keep doing what we're doing, which caused this thing. What caused this shooting was a hiring, failure to train, failure to maintain standards. That's what caused this shooting, and that's what caused most police bad actions. But nobody wants to do that because then it affects the liberal left agenda of quota hiring. All right, let me move on. Number 7. The officer then entered the residence to render medical aid. Woo, Johnny on the spot. Shot him with a machine gun and brought in a Band-Aid. MedStar was notified and Jefferson was pronounced dead. This is the juvenile. They blacked out his name. So-and-so, who was Jefferson's 8-year-old nephew, so he's 8 years old, inside the same room as Jefferson at the time of the shooting. That's going to be critical because the officer shot into a room, and I read some of their policy today, and under deadly force, it says you will not shoot into a building unless you know that you're shooting the one person or no one else can be injured or something like that. So that's going to be another policy violation they're going to tack on him. On Saturday, October 12th, Carr was interviewed by El Dula and a forensic interviewer from the Alliance of Children. They usually have one of these forensic interviewers so it doesn't re-traumatize a kid, and they interview him once. I don't know if they do that here in Texas or if that's what they're talking about, but they have somebody special with kids that did the interview. The child, I'll just call him the child that B. and Jefferson told Dula that he and Jefferson were playing video games in the back bedroom. So, on Amber Geiger case, the big thing was the guy was eating ice cream. Just to enrage the jury and make this a color thing, a poor black man was eating ice cream and he was shot by a white female officer. In this one, it's a poor black woman was playing video games with her kid or her nephew and was shot. Has absolutely nothing to do, but anyway, that's how the media is going to play it. That's how it's going to go forward. That's how the DA is going to get sympathy and to negate the fact on what the officer was doing and whether or not he was acting reasonable. All right, let's see. Where were we? Jefferson's 8-year-old nephew was inside the house. They were playing video games in the back room. Jefferson said she heard noises coming from the outside. This is kind of critical. and a lot of people are asking, if she shot him, would she be okay? And I say it depends, because everybody, and you got all these people on the comments saying, oh no, yeah, he had no business being there. If she shot him, it'd be totally justified. That's not true. Just because you shoot somebody lawfully and you give a shitty statement doesn't mean you won't get charged. If she shot him and said, yeah, I knew it was a cop, I saw his badge, but I didn't like those Fort Worth cops because they're always coming in the backyard, so I shot him, it would not be a justified shoot. Now, if she said, I heard noises, I was in fear of my life, I saw a shadow of a flashlight, and I fired to protect myself and my nephew, then it would be a justified shoot. That's why I keep telling you people how critical statements are and why you shouldn't give statements in a crisis, and how you better be damn sure on what statement you give, because it doesn't matter what the truth or what really happened. It comes down to how the lawyers and government can manipulate your statement to get the goal they want. Let's see. They were playing video games. It's really important. He heard a noise coming from outside. She took her handgun from her purse. Jefferson raised her handgun, pointed it toward the window. Then Jefferson was shot and fell to the ground. So, who thinks the officer, with his flashlight signing in there, you know, his 3,000 lumens flashlight, probably lit up the room like daylight, blinded the hell out of her. Who thinks he saw her pointing a gun? I can almost guarantee you he's going to say, and he probably did see a gun, because he fires. A lot of people are saying it's negligent, he didn't mean to. I just don't think he could get outgunned, because now that the kid said she pulled out a handgun and pointed it at him, that's pretty damaging evidence that the cop was acting in fear of his life. Doesn't change. Here's everybody go, he went in her house, he shot her, she should have shot. Look, you can get all emotional about this. I'm just telling you. The officer shot, she was pointing a gun, and now we have a witness that said she was pointing a gun at him. If the officer saw a gun and fired, it's not negligent, it's not accidental, and he was shooting because he was in fear of his life. Now we go back to, why was he in the backyard? Was he lawfully in the backyard? Did he need to be in the backyard? And just because he entered the backyard, should he be charged with murder? But that's for the courts and everything to figure out. Okay, Jefferson fell to the ground, shot. Then we went to number 10 on Saturday, the 12th. And when did this incident happen? On 12 at 2:30 in the morning. So now we're at October 12th. He doesn't give the time. See, he doesn't say what time he interviewed her, which is really, I mean, that's kind of basic 101 freaking patrol. You put date and time when you do something. So here, let me correct this. Sometime on Saturday, I don't remember if it was morning, noon, or afternoon, or if it was close to the 13th, or if it was, 30 minutes after the interview, or it was after Officer Darch had good night's sleep and 8 hours and came back, or did we keep her there for 6 hours before? We don't know what time we interviewed her. Just a little critical error there, Mr. 13-year task force guy writing your warrant. Let's see. Interviewed Officer Darch. Officer Darch said that she and Officer Dean were dispatched to the residence. We already know that. Officer Dean said they went to the backyard. We already know that. Officer Dean was standing between her and the house. So that means he was in front of her. She was behind him. For those that can't read between these officers' cryptic messages here. She was behind him. He was in front of her. And the officer was staring in the house. She could only see Jefferson's face through the window. So she did see Jefferson through the window, which gives credibility. If he says he saw a gun, they're going to say, if she saw the face through the window and she was behind him and further away, this is for the defense. Who's ever defending him, this is for you. If the other officer could see her face from behind him, isn't it reasonable that he was closer and saw more? So when he said there was a gun, and when the witness said there was a gun, isn't it reasonable that he thought he was about to be shot and saw a gun? I know, here come you idiots. But Rick, he shouldn't have been back there. I get it. I'm just telling you, it's totality of circumstances. Everybody wants to take one event and say, oh, well, this changes everything. Somebody saw a screwdriver by the front door. A screwdriver by the front door does not mean it was broken in. A screwdriver with damage to the door and there's chips on the ground, maybe. Now you've got a little bit more. But a screwdriver on the ground does not mean, oh, we got a burglary. Now he may say that seeing the place wasn't clean and I saw the screwdriver, I thought it was a burglary. Okay, well, if you thought it was a burglary, I can understand you not announcing. Why didn't you get on the radio and request more units? Why didn't you set up a perimeter around a building in case he was in there? Why didn't you take other steps instead of running around like freaking Batman in the middle of the night, going through a locked gate, which you had no business going back there? Now, he's going to say, I thought I heard, he could say, I won't say he will. He could say, when I was around the side, I thought I heard something in the backyard. And since I saw the screwdriver, I thought there was a burglary in progress, and I thought maybe the suspect was escaping out the backyard. That's why I opened the gate to clear the backyard for officer safety. When I was clearing the yard, I shined it in the window, and I saw a woman holding a gun. And because I was in the mind frame that it was a burglary, and I thought I heard somebody escaping, and I thought a screwdriver, and then I looked through the window, and there was a gun pointed at me, I fired in fear of my life to protect me. Does that sound reasonable? If that was his statement, and it was all true, does that sound reasonable? That's what I'm talking about when I'm trying to tell you people, when you read statements. You know, people jump to conclusions on a video, but that's just one part. And then his statement has to be corroborated. Well, it is corroborated. The video shows there's a screwdriver. The kid says she pointed a gun at him. The girl was behind him and saw her face, so it's reasonable he thought through the window. So there's a lot of corroboration on this guy's side. The biggest part, there's two things that I can't get past that's going to hurt him. Why didn't he announce, and why did he go in the backyard? Those are the two things that this case is going to hinge on. But let's see what else we at. Where are we at here? So she only saw his face, and then Officer Dean discharged his weapon one time. Okay. Let's see. Officer Dean declined to provide an interview on the date of the shooting, which is okay. He probably, that might be normal to say, you know what? I was just in a critical incident. Facts aren't real clear. I just came out of fight or flight. I just killed somebody. I want to speak to my attorney. I want to do this when I'm not so amped up and under adrenaline and coming down from adrenaline. And, I'll give you a statement tomorrow or the next day. And then he talks to his attorney. Officer Dean's legal counsel said he would not provide a written statement. And I think I said that earlier in the day on why he probably resigned. So they couldn't force him. Because if he said, I'm not providing a written statement, and he still worked for the PD, they could fire him for disobeying an order to give a statement. So by resigning and not giving a statement, now the PD's coming out, they were going to resign him. They were just about to call him when they found out he resigned. They were going to fire him right then and there. Normally, you don't fire people without a board, without a hearing, by running by HR. There's all kind of things. Very rarely do people get fired on the spot after a critical incident and somebody's dead. Within hours, they've already decided to fire him. That helps him for his counsel to say what a witch hunt this was and how everybody jumped to conclusion, how the mayor's already given press releases that there's no way to justify this. She doesn't know any of the facts. She hasn't even interviewed the shooter. And she's saying there's no way he can justify it. Oh, but everyone you talk to, everybody that voted for you, everybody that's listening to the news now might be a juror. They already know that you said there's no way to justify this. So they don't even have to hear the facts. Why don't we just take him out to a tree and hang him? Hell, it's Fort Worth, it's Texas. Let's bring back public hangings. Because that's what they would do if they could. So this guy needs a change of venue. They're all jumping conclusions. Let's see. He declined. Officer Dean resigned from the police department, declined to provide a written statement detailing his account at the time of the shooting. So again, this makes the arrest warrant a little bit easier because now we don't have to listen to his statement. If his statement was what I just said it was, then the DA would be like, well, yeah, it was reasonable if he did hear something. He did see the screwdriver, and it was possible burglary, and that's why he went back there. And the second officer who didn't stop him, obviously either she's as stupid as he is or isn't as trained, and they're both trained the same way, and they both thought this was okay. For them to say, especially they're not saying this other officer how long she's been on the force. What's her experience? If she's senior to him, and she allowed him to go in the backyard and didn't say nothing, must be standard operating procedure. Why would two people think that was okay? Why aren't they charging her? Why haven't they written her up for violating policy? Well, you know what? The DA may come back to them and go, hey, if we're going to attack him on policy, you need to make sure and discipline Dean for the same policy that I'm going to go after him for violating. Because if you guys don't discipline her, and now I'm saying he violated it, it doesn't look like you guys are consistent. It looks like you're all Mickey Mouse freaking not doing your damn job, just passing anybody and letting them go out there. And then when they make a mistake, you're hanging them out. So there might be some later. But if she gets disciplined, I want to see the date and the time and how quick. Because remember, they didn't even discipline this officer who shot. They just fired him. I mean, there was no discussion. So if she's not disciplined in the exact amount of time or close proximity they fired him, then it's BS, and I'm calling cover up. But anyway, so this is the thing. Now I want to go over the murder, because everybody's like, I know I'm at 25 minutes here, but let's take a look at the murder stuff here that everybody keeps arguing about. Okay, so here is the Penal Code, Texas Penal Code, Offense Against Person, Chapter 19, Criminal Homicide. Types of criminal homicide. This is where everybody's like, man, it shouldn't be murder. I don't think it ought to be murder either, but if you read this section, I know why they charge murder. A person commits criminal homicide if he intentionally, important, knowingly, important, recklessly, important, or with criminal negligence, important, causes the death of an individual. Criminal homicide is murder, capital murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide. So when they charge him with murder, it includes criminally negligent, manslaughter, capital, and murder. So here we go. Murder. 1902. Adequate cause. This is about defense, etc. So we can go down here to where it says capital murder. A person commits the offense of capital murder, defined in this section, if a person murders a cop or a fireman who is lawfully discharging his official duties. Notice that word lawful. Was this cop lawful when he went in the back gate? So if she shot him because she faced capital murder, we'd have to determine whether or not he was authorized to be back there. Discharge his official duty, person knows is a peace officer. Remember when I said, if she said I didn't know he was a cop and it was a shadow and I shot, she would not be charged with capital murder. A person intentionally commits the murder in the course of committing kidnapping, burglary, robbery. This is basically felony murder. You're committing a felony. Now we're at capital murder here. Let me check that. And 3, a person commits murder for renumerification, whatever. It's basically murder for hire. This is if you pay somebody to commit murder for you. Freaking lawyers writing stupid shit. A person commits the murder while escaping or attempting to escape a penal institution. So if you kill somebody while you're escaping, that's capital murder. Let's see. While incarcerated, the person murders more than one person, then it becomes capital murder. 8, the person murders an individual under 10 years of age. Oh, unless you're a woman and you're having an abortion, because then they give you an exemption for that. So women can kill their children, but anyone else under 10 years is capital murder. Person murders another in retaliation. Judge, Justice, Supreme Court. This is basically government protecting government. It's capital murder if you mess with government. If you kill one of those pesky tax-paying citizens, no big deal. Not capital murder. Okay, so also in murder we have manslaughter. 1904. A person commits this offense if he recklessly. What's the definition of recklessly? I'm going to look at that in a second here. I got it pulled up already. Causes the death of another. We'll go ahead and look at it now. What is recklessly? A person acts, according to Texas Penal Code, a person acts recklessly or reckless with respect to circumstances surrounding his conduct or the result of his conduct when he is aware, you got to prove aware, but consciously disregards, that means he has an actual intent and thought process, a substantial or unjustified risk that the circumstances could result. Was this officer reckless? If he shot somebody who was pointing a gun at him, I do not think you get past reckless. That's not reckless. Was he reckless when he entered the backyard? Maybe. If and buts and coconuts. I don't know. That'll be up to them to tie that in. Let's see here. Manslaughter. All right, let's go look at criminal negligence. 1905. A person commits this offense if he causes the death of another individual by criminal negligence. What's criminal negligence? Well, I just happened to pull that up. Person acts with criminal negligence or criminally negligent with respect to circumstances surrounding his conduct or the result of his conduct when he ought to be aware of a substantial or unjustifiable risk that the circumstances exist or the result will occur. I think they're probably there. On criminal negligence, I think they probably have him. He didn't announce and he walked in the backyard. This is where I think that they might have him. But, you know, this case is going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of results, a lot of new stuff. I'll be interested when this case goes. And you know, if they give his testimony, if he takes a stand, which he probably won't after seeing Amber Geiger. All I'm hearing is Amber Geiger on this trial. They're so different in my book, and they're not anywhere near close. This cop was dispatched. He was working in the course of his duties, and we haven't even got a statement from him yet. So we don't know if he saw more than a screwdriver. Maybe the lock was jimmied. Maybe he saw blood inside where it could have been innocent blood. She cut her finger. Maybe he saw blood on the floor. We don't know what he saw, what was in his mind, why he went in the gate. If he was doing so wrong, why didn't the other officers stop him? If they both thought it was okay, is it reasonable that they would both be improperly trained and incompetent and think this is reasonable? So then that would fall back to negligent training, negligent, you know, were they familiar with the policy? Who was their FTO? Why aren't we training the cops better? We're getting people killed because of training, and now you're blaming the people who are killing people because you didn't give them good training, or you gave them poor training, or you weren't enforcing rules, policies, and laws on your officers. Therefore, they thought it was okay to have this lackadaisical conduct and just walk in people's backyard. All these things will come up and more. This is an interesting case. And we'll end that there. I'll put it in a playlist.